Well, welcome back. Well, as you can see, I probably went a little too far on some of my sculpting. So when I was doing the teeth, actually kind of that creativity and everything else, I was like, ooh, what can I really do with that teeth? So I played around with it a little more, and then I decided instead of a zombie, I went with more of I thought of a witch. So that's what I'm working on. I did use this head, as you guys remember, for this. If I had it over with, I would go with the larger head because I used a lot of the air dry foam clay. And it is a great product. I love working with it for smaller projects like his cheekbones and everything else. But with that foam, as it dries, it does sag, and the weight of it will sag it down. As you can see with the zombie, the ears and stuff like that. So really you need to build your ears or build some of that. Some of these large things like the cheeks and the chin, the nose, I had a lot of sag. So I had a lot of work that I had to do to try to make sure that would take off. Also, you lose definition using that clay foam because as it expands, some of the lines you put into it, you'll lose that definition. But one thing that this thing, when it does dry up, I did test to see if you could use a Dremel tool with a drum little sander on it and actually bring back some of the lines and some of that definition on the witch. So that worked out pretty well. But what I'm going to show today, some of the things that I didn't show. I showed you how easy it is to do a nose, but I didn't show you when you set the eye, how you can wrap the eye. So I'll go over that a little bit. And then what we're going to get into is the corpsing of the characters. So several products you can use. I call it corpsing, especially when you're building monsters, but really it's kind of like a paper mache. I love using latex, a liquid latex. You can get this again online or at your hobby stores. If you get it kind of like a balloon latex or a mask latex, but they also have mold latex, which is great as well. You can put on some thick coats, but you can also thin that out with distilled water. The other thing you can use white glue, right? So the traditional paper mache, use white glue, water it down, and then you can dip your paper or use a brush and apply that. So that works out well too, but since a lot of these props that I do go outside, I like making sure I have that extra protection and use liquid latex. So also you can see they have some decoration on them. So I made the hats for them. I made the top hat, and I also made the witch's hat. I also sculpted out of using another product. You could use Super Sculpey or something like that for just making skull heads and doing that. So the witch's hat, but these are easy projects. I used EVA foam. The templates are kind of like a two-piece, so you have your circle. So you can build this even for yourself, get that dimensions of your head, decide how far out your brim wants to be, and how high you want it to go. So as you can see, it kind of waves down in the middle, so it kind of pushes the brim down, but you can raise it on the sides, and that's what you do to make the hat look like that. So you can go as high as you want, or you can make it a real small top hat. On the witches, this is real easy. So I like using poster board. Grab a pencil, a piece of string, come up with the diameter of how big you want your brim of your hat, draw that around, cut it out, use that on the EVA foam or felt or whatever else, and do, just do that as well, draw it out so you have that nice circle. For the top of the hat, what you do is you start on that poster board, start in the corner, and decide how tall you want this to go. So this one, I think it's like 17 inches. And so you'd go from the point and just draw kind of like a half circle or three-quarter circle on that poster board and cut that out. And then once you do that, one thing that I love using is rubber cement. And you do the edges of the hat or of the thing, let it dry. It has to be completely dry, or contact cement. And then you just bring the corners together and you line it up, and then you come up with your pointed hat and also your top hat as well. So actually easy projects, fun projects. There's a lot of YouTube videos on how you can template your own stuff. And you can even do, with that EVA foam, you can build costumes and armor and all that fun stuff. The other thing too, the epoxy sculpt, we use that as well for some of the hard features. As you can see in this one, I use that for the teeth, right? And then the bony material up here, that's all that hard. So that gets great detail. Where I used the foam clay are the cheeks, the ears, the brow, some of those places that I used. On this one, I used the foam clay pretty much all over, except as you guys saw, I started sculpting the teeth, and that's out of the epoxy sculpt on some of the hat decoration. So what I'm going to teach you how to do, just show you how simple it is to do kind of like the eye and do the stuff. And the most important shape, I think, when it comes to sculpting, especially like this, is kind of like rolling up noodles, making those. I use the noodles to do the lips, the eyebrows. Let me see if I can show you. See how I rolled the eyebrows? The ears, you know, doing the shapes of the ears. If you're using the air foam for the ears, make sure you do it on a flat surface and build it up. So make the ear shape first and then add the detail of the ear 24 hours later so it firms up, so it'll actually hold its form, unlike these saggy forms, but I think that works for that kind of monster creature. All right, so with that, I'm just gonna clear the table a little bit, grab some paper clay. The great thing about this, easy to work with, it holds great detail. The only bad thing about it is when it dries really quick. So if you have to sculpt overnight, you want to make sure you put kind of like a damp paper towels over it, your sculpture, and then even maybe wrap it in a plastic bag, just so it holds that moisture. And the other thing too, what I like doing, once I get them done where it's not quite dried out, and so it doesn't start cracking, that's one thing that it'll crack. So all I'm doing right now is I'm going to show you how you do just the eyelids. So when it's in your foam thing, but I'm going to just do it on paper right here, I'm just going to take it right to the corner. Actually on this one I'm going to wrap. This is the lower lid, and then I'm going to just wrap it right there. Hold it in place. Right there. It does dry out kind of fast, so if you have water that you can dip your fingers in, just keep it going. Then what I do is just make a noodle, and then I just stretch it out a little bit, just to give you some reference, because you're like, well, that doesn't even look like an eye. I do have a little water in a spray bottle. Using my handy dandy brush, get some detail in it. Again, on your styrofoam armature, that head, you know, you just follow the contours of the nose that's already there. Or if it's a skeleton, you'll have to make it up a little bit. And work one side to the other, make sure you try to stay consistent. That gives you a good idea on how that clay and foam and how you secure that eyeball into your foam structure. So the other thing I'm going to talk about is the corpsing. I think I talked about it a little bit. This is kind of, you can get at Sally's or some type of beauty supply. It's just, you know, they use it in there, I think, for perms and that kind of stuff. But you can also use cotton balls. They're really good cotton balls where you can find the edge and unwrap them, and they'll give you probably a 3-inch piece of cotton. On these though, you want to make sure you take out the paper support that's in there. Just get rid of that. I already sprayed this with kind of like a spray adhesive. I'm just going to show you the difference of using cotton and then the paper towels, what that looks like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the latex on this. So again, the latex is kind of like a watery material, and that's what's kind of consistent. You could also play with it, manipulate it a little bit, get some other wrinkles. On the cotton, what I found, if you start doing latex, it'll pull up the cotton a little bit. So a little trick I like doing is that I'll hit it with some water. All right. And then you can manipulate that a little more just on how you want to give lines, especially in an old wrinkled face with it. All right, so we're just gonna take our liquid latex. Try to be careful, try not to get it on the eye, but these were the little plastic you can order from Amazon. This is like 22 millimeter. For human eyes, you want at least 24. But they'll work out for what we're doing right here, unless you're gonna make little creatures, little monsters, which would be fun. And what this does on that paper clay, it kind of seals it, so it gives it a kind of like a slow dry, which that will prevent it from cracking. So this is what I'm gonna do on the witch. I'll use probably a combination. I just love how this gives that kind of a nice skin feel. This works great for zombies. I used this technique on the zombie head, the smiling zombie head. And then looking at anatomy and which way the different creases and everything else, you could really use this cotton to that advantage, right? So if you're doing it on the chin, you're doing it on the cheeks, you know, shows those great lines, and that'll come out when it dries. You can see that and then follow that. And you can even maneuver it when it's wet if you want certain wrinkles with the end of your, back end of your brush. Do some more sculpting, right? Of what you want to, how you want to make it look, what you want to make it look like. Sculpting, talking, I can't do both. All right, so we'll let that dry, but I just wanted to show you that's what it looks like, and then once it dries, we'll get another picture of it so you can see it. With that, next I'll show you some techniques for the painting.